What's up, everybody? I'm Logan Alec. I'm a CPA. I'm here today with another credit card comparison. Today I'm comparing the two Sapphire travel cards from Chase. I'm comparing the Chase Sapphire Preferred, which has an annual fee of $95, to the Chase Sapphire Reserve, which is an even more premium travel card that has an annual fee of $550 in exchange for even better rewards and perks. Some of you may have seen my standalone reviews for each of these cards that I posted here on the channel recently. There will be links to each of those reviews in the description below, as well as my reviews of other credit cards. But today I'm digging a little bit deeper here to help you figure out which Sapphire card is going to be a better overall deal for you based on your spending and travel habits. And in fact, later in this video, I will calculate the exact dollar amount of bonus category spending that makes the Chase Sapphire Reserve's much higher annual fee worth it. But I don't want to get ahead of myself here. Just to let you know how this video is going to work, as usual, this comparison video has 3 sections. First, I'll compare the features of each of these cards to the other. Then I'll give you the advantages that each card has over the other. Finally, at the end of the video, I'll talk about 2 kinds of people or situations in which I recommend the Sapphire Preferred, along with 2 kinds of people or situations who I think would be better off with the Chase Sapphire Reserve. Hopefully, by the end of the video, I will have answered the questions you might have about these cards. And if you're interested in either one, I welcome you to use my affiliate links in the description below. If you use my link and you are approved for the card, the channel here will get a small commission. This is at no extra cost to you, but it helps me to continue to be able to create content like this for all of you. Before we get started, I do want to mention right off the bat that these Chase cards are subject to something called the 524 rule, which basically means that you probably won't be able to get approved for either one of these cards if you've already opened 5 or more cards, Chase or non-Chase, in the past 24 months. Another thing to keep in mind is that every credit card application you submit will have a small effect on your credit score, and you don't want to waste an application if you're going to run into the 524 rule. So please make sure before you apply to either of these cards that you haven't opened any more than 4 cards in the past 24 months. All right, let's get into it. Let's start with the basics here before we get into some more advanced analysis. So just at a basic level, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the Sapphire Preferred has a $95 annual fee. And in terms of rewards on the Preferred, you're going to get 2 Chase Ultimate Rewards points for every dollar spent in the bonus categories, which are dining and travel, along with 1 point back on each dollar spent on everything else. The bonus categories are the same for the Reserve as the Preferred, travel and dining, but with the Reserve, you're going to get 3 points per dollar spent in these bonus categories of travel and dining. Now, let's push the pause button here and talk about what counts as travel and dining for purposes of these credit cards. Dining includes not only dining in restaurants, but also takeout and delivery services. What counts as travel? Well, Chase defines travel this way. Merchants in the travel category include airlines, hotels, motels, timeshares, car rental agencies, cruise lines, travel agencies, discount travel sites, campgrounds, and operators of passenger trains, buses, taxis, limousines, various toll bridges and highways, and parking lots and garages. So the definition for both dining and travel is actually quite broad. One thing that's not necessarily apparent on the list of what counts as travel is ride-sharing services, right? So things like Uber, Lyft, other ride-sharing services do count as travel for purposes of these credit cards. So those are the rewards on everyday spending. In terms of fees, the Reserve's annual fee at $550 is obviously much higher than the Preferred's $95 annual fee. Neither the Preferred nor the Reserve comes with a foreign transaction fee, so you can use both of these cards around the world at no additional charge. You can also add authorized users to your Sapphire Preferred for no cost, but you will have to pay an annual fee of $75 for each authorized user on a Sapphire Reserve. So that's something to keep in mind if you're planning to add more users to either of these cards. Now, one huge advantage of the Sapphire Reserve over the Sapphire Preferred, and this kind of mitigates the pain of the Reserve's $550 annual fee, is that the Reserve offers a $300 annual travel credit, where you automatically get up to $300 in statement credits per year for travel purchases you put on your card. And through the end of 2021, by the way, gas station and grocery store purchases also count towards your travel credit. Now, as of the time of recording, each of these cards also comes with a really lucrative introductory offer. Right now, the Sapphire Preferred will give you a 100,000 point bonus when you spend at least $4,000 on the card in your first 3 months of having it. This welcome offer on the Preferred is the highest ever. Sapphire Reserve, on the other hand, will give you 60,000 bonus points when you spend $4,000 on the card in the first 3 months. So even though the Sapphire Reserve is more expensive in terms of annual fee, it's actually the Preferred that has the better introductory offer right now, even after taking into account the Reserve's higher bonus redemption rate of 50% compared to the Preferred's 25%. I'll talk more about that later. This all being said, don't apply for cards just based on the welcome offers alone. You have to take into account everything about the card to make the right choice, right? And you do get a lot of other perks with the Reserve that I'll get into later. I also want to note that you will not be eligible for either the Sapphire Preferred welcome offer or the Sapphire Reserve welcome offer if you've already received an introductory bonus from a Sapphire card in the past 48 months. So if you already have one of these two Sapphire cards, you've already gotten a bonus in the past 4 years, personally, I would recommend waiting for those 48 months to run out before you either upgrade or downgrade to the other one. Obviously, there are exceptions to that, but considering how much you can get from the introductory offers alone, I think it's worth the wait in most situations. Now, let's talk about these points, right? These Chase Ultimate Rewards points and how much they're worth. So these Chase points are known as Chase Ultimate Rewards points, and the value you get from each point can differ based on what you redeem them for. As you might expect, points are worth a penny each when you redeem them for cash, but you'll get even more value when you either redeem them for travel through Chase Ultimate Rewards or use them to get a statement credit specifically on purchases in eligible categories through the Chase Pay Yourself Back program. Pay Yourself Back is fairly new. It lets you apply points to purchases retroactively up to 90 days later. Currently, the categories are dining, grocery stores, home improvement stores, and select charities. So with the Sapphire Preferred, if you redeem your points for travel through Chase or through the Chase Pay Yourself Back program, you can get 1.25 cents value per point. So that's basically a 25% redemption bonus with the Preferred. So as you can see here, I have a purchase for $26.43. Usually that would be equivalent to 2,643 points. But because I'm going through Pay Yourself Back, I'm going to get 25% extra credit on the Sapphire Preferred and only need 2,114 points to get a statement credit for this purchase. Sapphire Reserve cardholders have access to the same opportunities for extra rewards. You can redeem those points for travel through Chase Ultimate Rewards or credit past purchases in specific categories through Pay Yourself Back. But instead of a 25% bonus, the Reserve offers a 50% bonus. So just taking a look at the current introductory offer on the Reserve, it's only 60,000 points. If you redeem those for cash, like a statement credit outside the Pay Yourself Back program, these points would be worth about $600. But if you factor in that 50% bonus that you get if you redeem them in the smart ways, right, they will end up being worth $900 instead of $600. Doing the math here, the current Sapphire Preferred offer is for 100,000 points. So that would be worth $1,000 if you just redeem them for cash. But if you redeem these points the smart way, right, either redeeming them for travel through Chase Ultimate Rewards or through the Chase Pay Yourself Back program, these points can be worth $1,250. Both the Preferred and the Reserve give you the option to transfer your points to other airline and hotel rewards platforms at a one-to-one value. So your points could be worth even more if you transfer them to another rewards platform that's offering a better value. Obviously, how many points you earn is going to depend on which card you have, Reserve versus Preferred. But when it comes to transferring points to third-party programs, there's no difference between transferring from a Sapphire Preferred and transferring from a Sapphire Reserve. So as far as supported partners go, here they are: Aer Lingus Air Club, British Airways Executive Club, Emirates Skywards, Flying Blue, Air France KLM, Iberia Plus, JetBlue, TrueBlue, Singapore Airlines KrisFlyer, Southwest Airlines Rapid Rewards, United Mileage Plus, Virgin Atlantic Flying Club, IHG Rewards Club, Marriott Bonvoy, and World of Hyatt. Now, the downside to the redemption method if you transfer to travel partners is you miss out on the 25% redemption bonus on the Preferred and the 50% redemption bonus on the Reserve. But on the other hand, you'll be able to take advantage of any deals that are available with the program you transfer your points to. So if one of these partners has really good redemption options for its own points, you might be better off and get more value by transferring your Chase points over to that partner instead of using them in Chase Ultimate Rewards. You really have to look at the cash price of the hotel stay or flight you're looking at and divide that amount by the number of Chase Ultimate Rewards points you need to transfer over to that hotel or airline rewards program in order to purchase that stay or flight in points, right? And that will tell you how much value you're getting per Chase Ultimate Rewards point if you were to transfer your points over and redeem them for that hotel stay or that flight. And if the value is more than 1.25 cents per point for the preferred, or more than 1.5 cents per point for the reserve, then it's probably a good transfer. But if you're getting less value than those amounts, then you're probably better off just redeeming your points within the Chase platform itself. Speaking of transfer, you can also transfer points from one Chase card to another. For example, from a Chase Freedom Unlimited or a Chase Freedom Flex to one of the Sapphire cards. And I'll talk a little bit more about this strategy later. Along with the points themselves, both the Sapphire Preferred and the Sapphire Reserve also come with some other benefits and perks. You might not necessarily use all of these, but they're nice perks to have, and most people should get a decent amount of value from them. So first of all, Chase offers statement credits for Peloton memberships. Peloton is an online workout service that sells equipment and offers online classes to help you stay motivated. And Chase will cover the first $60 of your membership fee through the end of 2021 if you have a Sapphire Preferred, or the first $120 through the end of the year if you have a Sapphire Reserve. Both of these cards also come with a full year of free Dash Pass, which is the premium membership for DoorDash, as long as you activate that by the end of 2021. On top of the membership itself, which is available on both cards, the Sapphire Reserve will also cover the first $60 you spend on DoorDash orders, again through the end of 2021. Finally, Chase has a partnership with Lyft through the end of March 2022, so until that time, you'll get 5 points for each dollar you spend on Lyft rides with a Sapphire Preferred, or 10 points per dollar you spend with a Sapphire Reserve. Again, Reserve card holders get a little more here, right? First, they get twice as many points on those Lyft purchases, and they also get a complimentary subscription to Lyft Pink for a full year, as long as they activate it by that deadline on the last day of March 2022. So there are a lot of similarities here, but overall, the Reserve comes out ahead with better benefits for these three partners. Also, on top of the Peloton, DoorDash, and Lyft partnerships, the Reserve also gives you access to over 8,000 lounges worldwide through the Priority Pass network. Basically, you get Priority Pass Select membership with the Chase Sapphire Reserve. If you're not familiar, lounges are basically in airports throughout the world. Right at these lounges, you can get complimentary refreshments, Wi-Fi, etc. I personally love using them when I travel. With a Sapphire Preferred, on the other hand, you don't get any lounge access. Another perk of the Sapphire Reserve you don't get with the Preferred is special benefits at hotels that participate in the Luxury Hotel and Resorts collection. Examples of these potential benefits are complimentary room upgrades, complimentary meals, early check-in, late checkout, special discounts and credits, extra amenities, and more. You don't get this with the Preferred. Finally, the last set of Sapphire features are all about travel and purchase protection. These can be really helpful when something goes wrong. Unsurprisingly, the Reserve comes with more coverage than the Preferred, but the Preferred holds up pretty well, especially when you consider the difference in the annual fee. These policies only apply if you use your Sapphire card for whatever the purchase is, so you can't use another card for something and then try to get this kind of coverage through Chase. First off, both cards offer protection for trip cancellation or interruption, which applies if you're forced to miss a trip because, you get sick, there's some kind of weather event, etc. That policy will pay out up to $10,000 per person and $20,000 per trip to cover prepaid, non-refundable expenses, so you'll be able to get that money back and save it for your next vacation. Next, both cards provide some form of roadside assistance. Now, Sapphire Preferred card holders will still have to pay to use it, but there's a set price for each instance that covers basic services like lockouts, tire changing, and towing up to 5 miles. Reserve card holders, on the other hand, are enrolled in a different program. That one offers up to $50 in coverage per service, a maximum of 4 times per year, although you can only get that coverage once per week for the same cost. So if you need to jump today and you don't fix your battery or whatever, and you also need to jump tomorrow, you're going to have to pay out of pocket that second time. But even so, $50 probably won't cover the entire bill, right, for most services. Personally, I've been quoted much more than that for a jump. And if you need a tow or something more involved, then you're going to be paying out of pocket anyway. If you experience any kind of accident while traveling, and if you have a Sapphire Preferred or a Sapphire Reserve, then you can get compensation for that accident through Chase. The policies are mostly the same from one card to the other. They both come with up to $100,000 coverage for loss of life with most accidents, but if the accident occurs on a flight, train, ship, etc., then the coverage limit increases to $500,000 for preferred card holders and a full $1 million for reserve card holders. These policies are extremely detailed in terms of what percent you can get for specific injuries. Like I said, it's generally for loss of life with lesser amounts for various injuries. Don't really want to get into all the details, but those two aspects of the two policies are the same. Only difference is the coverage limits for accidents that occur on some form of public or commercial transportation, aside from things like taxis and commuter trains. Each card also provides a collision damage waiver for rental cars. They should work the same for most normal cars, but there are some differences in the particulars when it comes to vehicles that are more expensive. The Sapphire Preferred says it will pay out up to the actual cash value of most rented cars. There's no listed maximum, but it specifically excludes a few types of cars, including high-value motor vehicles, exotic and antique cars, cargo vans, trucks, motorcycles, limousines, and passenger vans with 10 or more seats. Their list of high-value cars covers brands like Corvette, Ferrari, Rolls-Royce, and Tesla, but coverage is available for, quote, selected models of some luxury brands like BMW and Cadillac. The Sapphire Reserve, on the other hand, offers up to $75,000 in coverage, so there's a clear limit with the Reserve, but the list of excluded vehicles is a little shorter. You still can't use that insurance for antique cars, trucks, motorcycles, most of the same exceptions that I mentioned with the Preferred, but there is no exclusion for high-value cars, which means that you will likely be covered for those luxury brands up to the policy's limit of $75,000. So personally, that difference isn't very important to me. I'm not planning to rent a Ferrari anytime soon, but I probably wouldn't recommend relying on the Sapphire Preferred coverage if you like to rent luxury cars when you travel. The next type of coverage is for baggage delays when it takes 6 or more extra hours for your bags to get to your destination. Just like with the trip cancellation and interruption insurance, baggage delay coverage is going to be the same regardless of which Sapphire card you have. So once you get to a 6-hour delay, you can spend up to $100 on essential items like clothes, toiletries, and chargers, and you'll continue to get another $100 in coverage for each day of the delay, up to 5 total days. There's a short list of exclusions that includes prosthetics, hearing aids, artificial teeth, money, jewelry, watches, cameras, but in general, you should be able to pick up whatever you need as long as you don't go over that limit of $100 per day. Along with baggage delay coverage, there's also protection for luggage that is lost, damaged, or stolen. Both the Preferred and the Reserve offer up to $3,000 in coverage per person per trip, along with sub-limits of $500 for jewelry and watches, and another $500 for cameras and electronics. So you could theoretically get up to $500 for your watch, $500 for your camera, and $2,000 for anything else that's covered by the lost luggage policy. Again, there are some exceptions, things like money, tickets, checks, whatever. But other than that, this should pay out in most of those unfortunate situations. The policies are exactly the same, so with respect to lost luggage, there's no advantage between the Sapphire Reserve versus the Sapphire Preferred. One last travel benefit I want to mention before moving on to purchase protection is travel and emergency assistance services. If you have either of the Sapphire cards and something goes wrong while you're away from home, you can call Chase and they'll help you work it out. So maybe you need to find a lawyer, or you need a doctor or a translator, whatever. Chase will help connect you to find those services to help you get back on track. Now, don't get me wrong, you're still going to have to pay for those services. Chase isn't going to pay out of pocket for your legal fees or your prescription or whatever, but they will connect you with the type of professional you're looking for. Sapphire Reserve card holders can get even more than that. They can get up to $100,000 in coverage for emergency evacuation, and that will be available as long as you book some portion of your trip to your Sapphire Reserve. One thing I noticed in this policy is that the evacuation actually needs to be pre-approved by a benefits administrator. That doesn't seem super practical if you need an emergency medical evacuation, but I can't imagine they'll give you much of a hard time if you are truly in a dire situation. Please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that and if you have experience with these policies. In fact, Chase says they'll actually fly a friend or family member out to you if you're hospitalized for more than 8 days. And if you happen to pass on a trip, they'll pay up to $1,000 to bring your body back to your family. I know that's morbid, but it's written directly into the policy. As usual, there are some important restrictions. You have to be on a trip of between 5 and 60 days. You can't be in a country like Iran or North Korea that the U.S. government recommends avoiding, and you can't be evacuated for mental health care, pregnancy, self-harm, alcohol or substance abuse, or a long list of other issues. But if your situation is eligible for coverage, then you can be reimbursed for evacuation-related expenses of up to $100,000. And on top of that, you can get $2,500 back for emergency dental or medical expenses as long as you're on a covered trip that was at least partially charged to your Sapphire Reserve. All right, that covers all the travel specific coverage that's available between the two Sapphire cards. At some points they're kind of equal, but at some points the Reserve offers more in terms of coverage. Both cards also offer extended warranties on most other items aside from vehicles, medical equipment, and some other narrow exceptions. So if you buy something that comes with the manufacturer's warranty of up to 3 years, your Sapphire Preferred or Sapphire Reserve will give you one last year of coverage once the original warranty runs out. This policy is identical whether you have the Preferred or the Reserve, and it's limited to $10,000 in coverage per claim and $50,000 over the life of your account. One thing to watch out for with this one is that you should register any warranties you want to use as soon as you purchase the item. Chase has a platform at www.cardbenefitservices.com because if you don't register it up front, then you'll need to track down the original receipt and warranty documentation in order to file your claim if the item is broken or damaged or whatever. Now, in addition to the extended warranty, there's another policy for purchase protection. Both the Sapphire Preferred and the Sapphire Reserve will reimburse you for theft, damage, loss, etc., with a few limited exceptions. The purchase protection policies are slightly different for the Preferred compared to the Reserve. They both come with a total maximum of $50,000 in coverage over the lifetime of your account, but individual claims are limited to only $500 with the Preferred versus $10,000 with the Reserve. Yes, you could still theoretically get $50,000 in total coverage with the Sapphire Preferred, but that's going to be tough when you only get $500 per claim. That means you would have to file at least 100 successful claims to reach that lifetime limit. So some of these policies are exactly the same with both the Preferred and the Reserve, but the purchase protection coverage is significantly better with the Sapphire Reserve relative to a Sapphire Preferred. Finally, one last form of coverage that only comes with the Sapphire Reserve is return protection, which allows you to get a refund for something you don't like, even if the original seller won't let you return it to them. This policy is limited to $500 per item and $1,000 per year, and you can only use it within 90 days of making a purchase. So basically, how this works is you let Chase know you don't want to keep whatever you bought. They'll ask you for some information, and as long as there aren't any issues with your claim, you'll be able to ship the item to them and get a full refund minus the cost of shipping. Whatever you're returning has to be in good condition, and again, there are exceptions in terms of what's covered, but this is one of those premium perks that really sets the Sapphire Reserve apart from the Sapphire Preferred. All right, now let's talk about the advantages of each of these cards over the other, starting with the Sapphire Reserve. The first advantage for the Sapphire Reserve is the travel benefits. First, the travel credit itself, and then all the extra perks I just mentioned, which can be really convenient if you travel regularly, especially if you end up in one of those situations where you need to rely on travel or purchase protection. Some of those policies are exactly the same on both cards, like I've said, but the Reserve does come with some extra things like lost luggage reimbursement, any emergency evacuation coverage, and more expansive rental car coverage. Again, if you have $300 in annual travel spending, then more than half of the annual fee will be offset by the Reserve's travel credit. And when you consider everything else, you start to see the value of that additional investment. Advantage number 2 for the Sapphire Reserve is the extra rewards opportunities. The Reserve offers 3 points on every dollar spent in the bonus categories of travel and dining, as opposed to only 2 points for the Preferred. The Reserve also gives a 50% bonus on pay yourself back and travel booked through Chase Ultimate Rewards instead of the Preferred's 25%. The Reserve gives 10 points per dollar spent instead of 5 points on Lyft rides and subscriptions through March 2022, etc. Sapphire Reserve basically improves on all the rewards that are available with the Preferred, and if you have a lot of spending, those extra points can add up really quickly. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the Sapphire Preferred. Advantage number one for this card is a lower annual fee. That's a no-brainer, right? Of course, there are situations where you're going to make up the added cost or the rewards that you use during the year, but I do want to emphasize that the Reserve's annual fee is $455 more per year compared to the Sapphire Preferreds. So I'll go into more detail in a minute about how to do that cost-benefit analysis based on your spending, but there is a big difference in the annual fee between these two cards. And that will obviously sway the decision for some people. Advantage number two, the Sapphire Preferred actually comes with even more points than the current introductory offer. Obviously, that only applies to the first year, but if you redeem your bonus points through Pay Yourself Back or by booking travel through Chase Ultimate Rewards, then you're going to end up with $1,250 in value with the Sapphire Preferred and just $900 in value with the Sapphire Reserve. Taking into account the annual fees, however, right, if we take the welcome offer less the annual fee, right? The economic gain there is $1,155 for the Preferred and only $350 for the Reserve. All right, at this point, you might be wondering which of these cards is the better overall value. And you probably know this, but the answer to that question is going to depend on your spending and travel habits. So the first situation where I would recommend the Sapphire Reserve is for people who spend a lot of money on travel and dining. Because as you spend more in the bonus categories, you're going to get more extra rewards from the Reserve versus the Preferred. And at a certain level of spending, it will be enough to offset the extra annual fee. Let's look at the numbers here. Remember, the Reserve gives you 3% back in the bonus categories of travel and dining versus just 2% from the Preferred. And if we assume that you're going to redeem those rewards through Pay Yourself Back or by booking travel in Chase Ultimate Rewards, then that jumps to 4.5% for the Reserve and 2.5% for the Preferred in the bonus categories. In other words, you'll get an extra 2 percentage points back on spending in the bonus categories if you have the Sapphire Reserve. That's basically an 80% increase if you redeem your points for travel through Chase, or through Chase's Pay Yourself Back program. So for every $100 you spend in those categories, you're going to come away with $2 additional in rewards with the Reserve compared to the Preferred. But of course, you have to take into account the annual fee difference as well as the Reserve's annual travel credit. So let's dig a little deeper here with some algebra. This is actually the formula here to calculate the break-even point in travel and dining spending for the Chase Sapphire Preferred versus the Reserve, taking into account the annual fees and travel credit and assuming all points are redeemed for travel through Chase or through the Chase Pay Yourself Back program. I'm not going to break down this formula for you, but you can see the elements here are the 1.5%. That's the Reserve's redemption bonus. The $300 is the Reserve's travel credit. The 3 constant is the Reserve's 3x bonus spending on travel and dining. The $550 is the Reserve's annual fee. The 1.25% is the Preferred's redemption bonus. The 2x represents the Preferred's 2x points on travel and dining spending. And the 95 is the Preferred's annual fee. So using some 8th grade math here to solve for x in this equation, we would get $8,425. So here's a table basically working that solve in reverse. So if you spend more than $8,425 on dining and travel during the year, you'd get more value from the Reserve, assuming you use the $300 annual travel credit. And if you spend less than $8,425 on travel and dining a year, the Preferred would give you more value. And remember, this is excluding the additional perks that the Reserve gives you more of, right? But it also doesn't take into account the Preferred superior welcome offer right now. This is just focusing on the long-term, year-over-year rewards you get from spending in the bonus categories of travel and dining. I'm not going to walk through the calculations here. If you want to pause the video at this point, check my math, you are more than welcome to do so. The second situation where I would generally lean toward the Sapphire Reserve is if you're a big spender and you already have another Chase card, particularly something like the Chase Freedom Unlimited. I reviewed this card before right here on the channel. Link to that review at the top of the screen and in the description below. As I mentioned previously, you can transfer your Chase Ultimate Rewards points between cards. And even though the Freedom Unlimited is a free card, it actually offers a better rewards rate on non-bonus spending than either the Sapphire Preferred or the Sapphire Reserve. So the two Sapphire cards give you 1 point per dollar spent outside the bonus categories of travel and dining. Freedom Unlimited offers 1.5 Chase Ultimate Rewards points per dollar spent. And if you have one of the Sapphire cards, you can move your points from the Freedom Unlimited over to the Sapphire card in order to redeem them for more value through the strategies I outlined earlier in this video, either booking travel through Chase Ultimate Rewards, using points and pay yourself back, or even transferring them to an outside platform. And because the Sapphire Reserve, for example, gives you that 50% redemption bonus when you redeem your points in Chase Ultimate Rewards Travel or through Chase Pay Yourself Back, your Freedom Unlimited rewards on non-bonus categories will actually work out to 2.25% when you move them to the Sapphire Reserve. For the Preferred, this math comes out to 1.875%. Now, that might not sound like much, and it's not going to amount to much throughout the year if you're a smaller spender, but let's say you use this strategy on $40,000 in non-bonus annual spending, you're going to end up with $150 more in rewards value with the Reserve over the Preferred. So it might not be enough of a difference to justify the extra annual fee on its own, unless you have a ton of annual spending outside the bonus categories of travel and dining. But I wanted to highlight this and to point out that this can add up over the course of a year for people with high spending levels. All right, now I want to talk about two situations where I would recommend the Sapphire Preferred. Number one is if you just don't spend that much money, particularly in the bonus categories, but you still want a solid travel card. As I said when I was highlighting use cases for the Sapphire Reserve, the additional rewards get more and more valuable as you increase your spending. So the Reserve is generally going to be better for people who spend higher amounts of money, especially on dining and travel. And on the other hand, it's going to be tough to justify the $550 annual fee at the Sapphire Reserve unless you spend enough to offset that amount. Again, the break even for combined annual travel and dining spending right now is $8,425. Some of you might think that's a lot, others not so much, but if you think you'll be pretty far below that number and you aren't as concerned about the secondary benefits of the Sapphire Reserve, such as the airport lounges, the hotel perks at certain hotels, etc., then you might be better off with the Sapphire Preferred, even though you're going to get less back on each dollar you spend in the bonus categories of dining and travel. The second context where the Sapphire Preferred could make more sense than the Sapphire Reserve is if you want to add a lot of people as authorized users on your account, because there is no annual fee for authorized users on your Sapphire Preferred. You can add your spouse, other family members, what have you, right? And you won't have to pay an annual fee for each of those cards. Compare that to the Chase Sapphire Reserve, which charges a $75 annual fee for each authorized user on your account. All right, everybody, I hope this video cleared up a lot of stuff and answered a lot of questions for those of you who are deciding between the Chase Sapphire Preferred and the Chase Sapphire Reserve. Obviously, there's a lot of common ground between these two cards, but the overall value proposition really does vary depending on your spending habits, as well as how you redeem the rewards you earn. So I can't tell you, right? There's the one right choice here. A lot of people think the Sapphire Reserve is a better card for them, and it is one of the best premium travel cards on the market, but you obviously do pay a lot for those features, and Chase is mostly targeting frequent travelers with this card with its annual fee of $550 a year. As always, I do want to thank everyone for watching to the end. I really do appreciate your support. If you're interested in either the Chase Sapphire Preferred or the Chase Sapphire Reserve, I'd really appreciate it if you use my links for them in the description below, and be sure to check out some of my other credit card content right here and right down here. I'll see you in those videos. Bye-bye.